Okay, it is 7:08 p.m. My name is Jacob Pride. I'm the chair of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. This is our regular business meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Members present include myself, Vice Chair Robert Lovenheim. We have Missy Pruger on behalf of our engineer, Boucher and James. We have our office manager, Julia Heilicke. Members of the public present also include Doug Olmsted from Smithfield Gateway, former Supervisor Vince Dellafera. We also have a couple people, Leah Lee and David Bauer, Bridget Keating, and someone listed as iPad from the public. We just had the Pledge of Allegiance, so I'll dispense with that for this proceeding. Our first order of business is approving the minutes of July 14th, July 20th, and August 10th.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Okay. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will add that if our colleague Supervisor Barrett joins this call, because he was just at our in-person meeting, if he joins, he's free to be a participant and vote at that time. Public comments on the agenda. Do we have anyone here that would like to make a comment on something that is included or not included on the agenda? Hearing none, we will proceed. We have no public hearings tonight, but we do have a plan that requires some action. That is the Jones-Saplichny lot joinder. Julia, Missy, I'm not sure who the best person to ask to start this one is. We're nearing the end of this one.
I'll take it. The applicant submitted new plans on June 1st, so our time clock runs out on the 30th of this month. At this time, Boucher and James has not received the approval forms that were discussed and gone through by Mr. Karasak and Mr. Chesto at the last meeting. So I spoke to Ron before he left, and he said that in previous times you have voted to deny the acceptance of the lot joinder unless you get another extension from them before the 30th, which means that if you chose to vote in that manner, if the 30th hit and we did not receive another extension from them to address the comments that are still outstanding for John Chesto's letter, you would deny the plan. Okay.
Seeing as we've not heard anything from the applicant in some time, I move that our automatic denial of the plan take place by August 30th, pending the lack of an extension. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next order of business is considering the transfer of American Rescue Plan Act funds from our general fund at ESSA Bank to People's Security. The amount of that transfer is $395,558.29. This keeps our banking consistent with the rules that apply to federal entitlement funding, like the American Rescue Plan, so it ensures that the interest and expenses are tracked separately. So,
can I make a motion?
Yes, sir.
To transfer the American Rescue Plan Act funds from ESSA to People's Security.
Second. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item is considering the renewal of the Memorandum of Understanding with RSVP, which is the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program of Monroe County. This is a routine process that is done to offer ourselves as someone that can take volunteers. It's a wonderful organization that has a phenomenal staff, and while I'm unaware of any past use of said volunteers, I welcome the idea that we include them.
So do I.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we renew our Memorandum of Understanding with RSVP.
Second. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Next item, Doug Olmsted for Smithfield Gateway update.
This is just to provide you an update with respect to the Smithfield Gateway project and to very briefly go over 3 review letters that we received today from Boucher and James. The first one being a review of the major subdivision plan, and the other 2 are a planning and technical review of the land development plan for phase 1A-1. Before I get into those review letters, Just like to mention the fact that we're still between the solicitor, the engineer, and ourselves. We're just going through the final tweaking for the development agreement and the escrow agreement. Those are, rather lengthy documents, and we just want to make sure that all parties are protected. And it's also being able to be used as a document that can, serve as the base for future sections as they go through, so we're not reinventing the wheel every time we come in, and make life a lot easier for all parties involved. The one item that I think we did come to an agreement today, and I'd like to get an okay from the township on this, because these were the numbers that were going to be agreements, and that's the amount of the escrow that would be required for the 2 construction escrows and the 1 planning review escrow. It'd be $10,000 each for the 2 construction escrows and $5,000 for the planning review escrow, with the understanding that there would also be language in the developer's agreement that states that if the township finds that that is not a good number, they have the right to change that.
What was the first number for the 2 construction?
10,000 each.
10,000 each.
And 5,000.
And then 5,000 for the planning. So if I could get a motion that is okay with you. There's no other motions needed with respect to the developer's agreement, but since this is a policy decision at this point in time for the developer's agreement, I think it would make sense to have a motion.
Right, and the Shay and James agreed with those numbers or suggested them?
Yes, John suggested those numbers.
Okay. Julia, are we subject to the new Act 65 regulations at this day?
No. Act 65 takes effect on August 29th. But, for the sake of getting
we will practice.
Let's practice.
So due to the new Act 65 law, anytime something comes up that was not on the agenda and advertised 24 hours in advance, we must then add that to the agenda as a voting item, and then vote on the item. And we have to give reason with doing so. So our reason in this case, for those that are watching, is to set the framework for that escrow agreement, developer's agreement that is presently being worked on, and solidifying that, which gets everything much closer to completion. So for that necessity, and
Jacob, before you go any further, it can also be stated that the developer's agreement was already motioned and approved by the supervisors to proceed with that.
correct,
Subject to the agreements of the solicitor and the engineer.
correct,
In this case, there's really no official action, but this was almost like an informal action or affirmation of
Sure.
those 3 numbers, so that you have approved it already by
Right.
making it subject to their okay, that, that's,
understood,
and since it's before the deadline for the new,
right.
65.
Yeah, and,
Therefore, we can
right.
make a motion to
yeah,
approve.
so would you like to make a motion
I'll
on
make a
that?
motion to approve the 3, escrow agreements, 2 for $10,000, 1 for $5,000.
In accordance with the engineer's letter, is it dated today?
They were emailed.
Email stated today.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, with respect to the 3 review letters, I'll start off with the, subdivision plan, the review dated August 24th. Actually, as it turns out, there's no comments, and based on our review of the above information, we have no further comments, so we have a clean review letter as far as the subdivision plan is concerned. So there's no discussion needed with respect to that. On the land development plan, the planning review, there's 4 or 5 different comments. I'd like to go through each one individually, just to kind of give you an update as to where we are.
Sure.
Underneath zoning, for the planning review, the first comment talks about the PennDOT permits, and that refers you to a future comment in this review letter, so we'll just say that's addressed further down in the letter. The second one is stating that they wanted to know how the maintenance is going to be prepared, and we did forward to the solicitor of the township and the engineer the condominium plan, as well as the declaration of easements and the declaration of condominium. The declaration of easements and the declaration of condominium both address how the maintenance would be issued. And I think they actually used as an example in the review letter with respect to landscaping. In one of those documents, landscaping is specifically addressed, that those are items that need to be, the condominium assessment management fees that go for each parcel would be addressed as part of that to make sure that the township is covered. So we just need to wait to get comments from the solicitor and engineer on that. On the subdivision and land development plan, the water authority, the will serve letter that we got was, I think Missy will agree, was nebulous at best. It states that they have sufficient water, but they don't have a way to get it to us, which is in the plans that were approved. We are in the final stages of the developer's agreement with the BCRA. So at the same time that we finalize the agreement with the township on how the project will be developed, the same agreement will be in place for the BCRA. And that also will serve as the basis so that in the future we don't have to reinvent the wheel in order to address that. The sewer authority, the one item that they did kind of ask for, because we do have an approval from the sewer authority, they did ask something with respect to the planning modules, and there was an exemption that was granted back in September of 2005. I'm not sure whether the engineer had that in their files. They might have it in their files, but it may be buried someplace along the line, you know, in the system. And that was for the old outlet facility that was going to be on the Chelsea. Right. And then the sewer authority transferred some of those EDUs from that property over into the property that's before the township at this point in time. The fire company has approved the location of the hydrants and the circulation as far as their vehicles are concerned. And as far as the Department of Transportation is concerned, we have received permits for the pipe culvert, which is good since it's now done and in. The water company has also received their permit. So a lot of the work that I think the township engineer was obviously concerned about is covered under that one. And the same holds true with respect to the sewer authority. There are a few other permits. One is the main work along 209, but then there's a permit for the Riccobono driveways, which includes the on-lot outlet. There's a local road, which will be for the 209 intersection with Mosier Farm Drive, which will be a township road. The other side of that is an HOP for DEPG Smithfield, which is the owner of the real estate, which is the Chelsea site. And they also have a couple of other driveways, and then there's a sidewalk HOP in the name of the township, as well as a storm HOP in front of the township, and you had previously signed documents for that. Based on recent correspondence from actually the director of District 5, Mike Reber, we expect to have those still outstanding permit applications. We expect to have those permits in hand by the end of next week.
That's great. So
that will be cause to celebrate all the way around once that gets taken care of. The other two comments under this with the Monroe County Planning Commission, which has been addressed, as well as the, Monroe County, Department of Environmental Protection. Their fourth comment under here, again, was with respect to the condominium association. That was addressed in the previous comment that I had already mentioned with respect to that. And then the last comment was again with respect to the HOPs. So that takes care of the planning review. And then under the technical review, there's really only two comments, both of which we've already discussed. One of them was with respect to the sewerage system, and the second one with respect to the water system. That same comment applied to the previous discussion just passed. So that's where we are. Our construction obviously proceeds at a good pace. Actually, I think I received a comment from one of the supervisors that the size of the invoices that we've received shows that the contractor's getting on a pretty good clip. I think we've probably already spent close to $2.5 million on site, although don't have a lot to show for it when you look at it, but it'll start to come together pretty quickly. And the closings for the financing, which will tie all of this information together, are expected in the first half of September, September 15th being the latest closing. And then once those closings take place, all of the documents that are being put into escrow with Mark Wolf, as previously agreed to by the township, those will all be able to be released so that we can then get our building permit and start vertical construction, I'm going to say, from the, before the end of the year, we'll be able to start vertical construction, so. On the medical office.
What do you have to deliver? When's the delivery date?
Based on the HOP, it's expected that the traffic signal will be operational by Labor Day of next year. So once that is operational, they'll be ready to rock and roll.
Okay.
Great. Anybody have any questions for Doug? Great. Well, thank you very much for attending both meetings.
This one was much more interesting. So, but the other one was also a very necessary meeting, so.
Definitely.
And I haven't really discussed it with Jim, but if there are certain issues that you want our assistance on, as far as the ordinances are concerned, we'll do what we can to assist the township.
Any suggestions are welcome.
Oh, thank you very much.
I had some, but I didn't think
I'd love to hear
that audience would.
when you get a chance. I'd love to hear them.
Understood. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, and I have plans there for signature, so if I could pick those up in the next couple of days, I will add them to the other 8 or 9 sheets that will all be recorded, and then provide those to Mark so that they go into lock and key and escrow until such time they can be released for recording purposes.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you. We will be in touch.
Good night.
Before we go.
Sure.
While Doug was speaking, I received an email from Ron, stating that if the board does intend to deny the plan as discussed, please reference the township engineer review letter of April 14th, 2021. We didn't do that when we made the original motion. So, on behalf of email by our solicitor, if we could amend that motion, I'm sure he would be grateful.
So moved. Robert, is there a second?
I'm assuming that is for the previous item that was on.
Yes, yes.
I heard denial and I got scared.
Jones officially not joined it, that's all.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good seeing you.
Robert, will you second my motion
Yes.
to amend your motion?
I second.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? Aye. Our next item up is considering, radios for the road crew. This is something we talked about at our last work session, and Julia, you've had the chance to ask some questions about,
Yes, that is correct. The two questions that the board had after the fact were, one, would these be compatible with our emergency management, center, the Monroe County Control Center, and whether or not these were GPS capable? The answer is yes, they are compatible with our emergency management. There is a process to get them hooked up, and we will need an okay from Gary Kaufman. Ed has recommended that we keep only one hooked up to the county to help with chain of command during an incident. As far as the GPS goes, they are GPS capable, but it is a bit of a process. It would be a software update. We would have to have a dedicated computer, and then we need to buy technical software for that computer to be able to track. I did speak to Ed about this, and at this time, because our fleet is so small, he doesn't believe this is necessary.
Okay.
But they're capable if we ever change.
Well, that's awesome. That's the best part. All right.
So, do we want to authorize those tonight?
Yeah, what's the top line,
The cost is $16,630, and as a reminder to the board, after speaking with Industrial Communications, we wouldn't be able to get these radios before February of 2022, so you would authorize it tonight to come out of next year's budget.
Okay, I'll make a motion to authorize the purchase of radios, blah, 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 whatever it is you put in particulars.
shall your motion
At a
include
price.
$16,630?
$16,630,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, I will second that motion. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is, considering hiring consultant John Donahue. Robert, you can speak to this,
Yes, we, have been informed by PennDOT that, our, grant that was rescinded for the Green Light Go project, which is a project which would connect all the lights along 209 from 80 all the way through Bushkill, with a very state-of-the-art computer system that would read and readjust those lights every 15 seconds, 24 hours a day, has been reinstated. We don't know yet the time when we'll be able to put it out for bid, but all of the engineering has been done. But what wasn't done before was include the Bushkill light, because we were under the mistaken impression that it was Lehman Township who turned us down. In fact, it's owned by the National Park Service. And I've talked to John about hiring him as a consultant to do two things. One is to find the money and convince the Park Service to join us on this. It's not really the local Park Service people, it's people far above them. And at the same time, to look towards getting what's called a FLAP grant. What is that? I can't remember what it's for, but it's available to areas adjoining national parks for the purpose of facilitating entrance or something to the national parks.
Federal Land Access Program.
There we go. Because we might be able to get sufficient money through that for the not only for paying for the light at Bushkill, but maybe even some more money towards our own expenses along with PennDOT. Anyway, so I'm suggesting, and he has said he would be willing to do it for a fee of $2,500. So I'll make the motion that we hire consultant John Donahue at $2,500 for the work that I just mentioned on Green Light Go and FLAP in connection with the traffic light at Bushkill on 209.
I will second the motion. Now, I will ask, so does this affect the overall project? I know that Smithfield is part of the Green Light Go collaborative with other municipalities. Will this work impact that?
It should, if we can get more money from FLAP, and will impact it only in that it will be the entire corridor. Before, it never went as far as Bushkill because Lehman Township said no. Now we know that it's the National Park Service. If we can get them on board, we'll have the entire corridor. that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Julie, did you have a?
I do have one. Will this institute a change order? Because we're
It will,
changing the scope of the
it
grant.
will eventually, yeah.
Okay, and then will these funds that you want to approve also cover, the administration of going through the process of issuing the change order with green light?
No, and we don't know what that cost would be, because it may be that, first of all, it would be that if there's a change order, in the engineering, then the Park Service would be, liable for their part of whatever the engineering costs are. We paid our part, or rather PennDOT has paid our part so far. Anything beyond that, where there are costs that the townships would bear, the Park Service would bear the cost for their license.
So nothing would happen unless John should be successful in its entirety?
Yeah. Correct.
You do have 10 comments.
Oh. Can you check that? I don't. It's difficult to permit that. It could be relevant to.
It seems like
I think someone's talking about the prior meeting.
Yeah, seems like it.
okay, well, those comments came through at 7:21, so I guess that was a.
Well,
Okay. They are still asking, everyone to speak louder though, so if we can start speaking louder to assist with
is that the last one, or is there anything below that?
Am I talking loud enough? Or not?
I think so. It might be my mask suppressing my. Yeah, just scroll with your two fingers.
That's the last one.
Okay.
Visitors members are not close to their microphones as the voices sound disjointed.
Oh, all right. Well, everyone here is vaccinated. Everyone here is vaccinated, so I'll take this off for the moment. So we are a place of high transmission. I would otherwise urge people to wear them. That said, I'm sorry that we did not get to your comments earlier. I will see if there's some sort of method that allows us to get a notification or something. It's hard to administer this, both running the meeting and the Zoom, but I appreciate your comments. As for what you mentioned, because I do want to get back to voting on the motion on the floor, the meeting at 4 p.m. was the one that went over the zoning discussion, and yes, it had a 77-page packet, but we're going to be providing this to some individuals a redlined version, if you will, that will outline the changes between the two versions. I will ask, for patience, as the existing ordinance, it is quite lengthy, so it might take a little bit to bridge them, but this will not be an overnight process, and there are a lot of people that spoke at the last meeting, so you can actually stream that on YouTube if you're interested in seeing that. But thank you very much. I wish I could identify you so we had your name for the minutes. I think Mr. Bauer was the one that made most of those comments. The ones about the microphone, I'm not sure if Lee is a different individual or who PER or iPad are, but thank you. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions on Robert's motion? Does that all sound like commonplace with the SLAP and perhaps getting money from other forms? I don't know if you've worked on the Green Light Go.
Well, yeah, we worked together on the Green Light,
Yeah.
the original submission. I'm not familiar with SLAP, but I know that you can always ask for money from other places, different projects to connect them to them.
Sure.
So, you want that a unit?
Cool. Okay.
So is the motion on the table?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. next is discussing the Zelenkovsky-Axelrod contract and COG update. So thanks to, Pocono Mountains Council of Governments, there was a negotiation between them and the county commissioners, I suppose, with Zelenkovsky-Axelrod, which is offering services to, administer American Rescue Plan Act funds in the townships and help us figure out what we can actually spend the funding on. We had previously, at our, I want to say, July 20th meeting, perhaps earlier, voted to retain their services, and that was at a cost of around $19,000. At this point, we've received an update through COG that they could give us a rate of $17,400, which is cheaper than the original $19,000 rate, and that includes all of the same services that we would have had individually, and regardless, they are going to honor the lower price. The same level of staffing is on the project, and I don't know if there were any other concerns.
I think Brian was concerned that if we did it through COG, we wouldn't be getting the level of service we would if we made our own contract.
Right. Right. The only thing that isn't included is if we decided to enact our own version of the rescue plan, which, based on conversations we've had at these meetings, is not in the cards at this point. So should we need that, we would have to see if they would quote us on that. But they would help set it up, just like any other program that they're helping us with. Because this item expends funding and requires formal action, and we want to practice for Act 65, I would move that we add to the agenda, strike discuss and change it to consider, on this line item, so we can vote on the matter. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now it is agenda item. Because this addresses all the concerns that we talked about, the fee for us is going to be reduced. We have the same access to all of the services that we would have needed, and there's really no other issues. I would move that we accept or revise our contract acceptance to the $17,400 number.
A second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Bills to be paid.
Right.
Do you have additional comments that have come up on the screen?
Lee, yes. Robert, do you want to address that?
Are you able to read those out loud?
It says, "Hi, did not hear how John Donahue was going to help with the lights. Is Middle still involved?"
John Donahue would be our consultant working with the National Parks administration, probably regionally or in Washington. It really is not in the purview of people that are administering the park here, to get the Park Service to put up the necessary funds and join us so that that light can be included in the 209 corridor that would have all the lights from 80 through Bushkill. And the hope is that with this new system, traffic will be able to move very quickly and unimpeded through the entire corridor. The other part of it, Middle Smithfield is still involved. This is a joint project of Smithfield, Middle Smithfield, and hopefully it will be the Park Service. And each one pays proportionally depending on how many lights they have. Most of the lights are in Middle Smithfield. And when it comes to adding lights, of course, we'll be adding one at Smithfield Gateway as well, but the developers of Smithfield Gateway will pay most of the additional expenses to put into the program.
So in effect, there's really two parts. The FLAP grant, which finances the whole project, but the other part, John Donahue will try to convince the National Park Service to fund a light, which is presently in Lehman Township, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And for those who don't know, John Donahue is the past, director of, I think this director you call it, supervisor.
Right, superintendent of
Superintendent.
Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area.
Just retired a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Didn't think Park had a light. We didn't either. It's a light at Bushkill in 209. We didn't realize until John told us that it actually owned by and operated by the Park Service. We thought it was operated by Lehman Township. It's not true.
Right.
So, surprised us also.
Right. So, our next item then is, our obligations between the general fund and the highway fund for the month. It totals $141,907.98. That includes our typical payroll, our health insurance for employees, engineering and solicitor bills, as well as other routine, hardware and the like, including, trash services also. Does anybody have any questions on the bill? Hearing none, I move that we meet our obligations to the tune of $141,907.98.
I second that.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we have public comments. We have a few members of the public between Zoom and, in person, so whom would like to go first? Sure.
Martha, why don't you come up here?
I'm fine, thank you. Go back to the room, down. No, I wasn't able to be here for the earlier work session. I know it was discussed about the economic development ordinance, so maybe if I have time, we'll go look at the YouTube. But, I'm wondering if you could just give me a brief update about where that stands, and is it gonna be voted on tonight, like, it wasn't clear what the process is.
No, so nothing was voted on tonight. We just discussed, proposals that were made, between Ron, our solicitor, and Robert, which included changing some definitions to meet compliance with federal laws, like the FCC, for example, with wireless communication facilities, i.e. 5G, like small towers, because they're not really like the same size as typical towers, I suppose. We also talked about mixed use and, where that should be permitted, how we're going to fix that residential development is prohibited in a mixed-use building, though it's in the definition, so fixing that contradiction. We talked about how we need to move forward on setting a ratio for how much commercial or I suppose non-residential use in a building. What does that equal in terms of your ability to build apartments or dwellings above or next to whatever you're constructing? Talked about that. We also...
Indoor shooting ranges.
Right, indoor shooting ranges. That there was some problems at the boom motor, or the property near the boom motor lodge that people were talking about for the most part. I think the plan of action is to get working on, getting a redlined version between the proposal and the existing ordinance out to those that attended this meeting, which will also go online, and also starting the framework for a so-called skinny ordinance, which would hit the most critical things. So things like the scenic corridor are not going to be in that ordinance. The goal of the skinny ordinance, as opposed to the omnibus ordinance, would be to cover the critical syntax and referential errors that were made in the original ordinance, and I believe a small map change to properties that are presently commercial that are on Independence Road that are not zoned as such, that had been in the past and were left out in the last update. We primarily got to talking about that and hopefully getting that done by the end of the year and addressing the others at a later time. It will be an open discussion, but the goal is to get the critical, logistical things taken care of by the end of the year.
So you're saying that, like, a draft of work in progress will be posted online at some point?
Right, so presently the existing draft is there.
Okay.
I can also email you a copy, because sounds like we're gonna be adding some things to it. So I can email you what we do have now, or Robert can, I know he has your email.
It's gonna be online,
Yeah, this,
Right.
you understand this has nothing to do with the PRD.
Oh, yeah, no, I know that, yeah.
That's a separate issue.
I didn't think so, yeah. So the only other question I have about all that is, when this is enacted, I don't know when the timeline is for that, but will it, necessitating zoning changes? Are there any areas that are subordinate? I'm assuming most of this applies to the Gateway project, but I'm not sure.
Oh, well, it applies to everything that's in the zone, and because the original ED zone, which we adopted last year, consolidated the commercial and boulevard zones into one zone. It's already zoned, ED, but, there are 7 properties that are actually linked up together that would, I believe, like to be included in the ED zone that are on Independence Road, right? Independence Road?
Yeah, they were forgotten about, just inadvertently.
Where's Independence from?
447.
So like this,
Right.
back there?
Right.
It's between Hammond Court and, what is it, Gapview Lane or something.
Okay.
And there's a strip there of 7 properties. One of them was already in the zone, which is owned by St. Luke's. Then there's 6 others that, for reasons we don't know. I asked Ken Wolf, and he said, we just forgot about it. So we're just left out. So we'll correct that.
Right. So that's the gist of it. There's no map changes proposed in Shawnee or elsewhere. To date, we haven't received any applicants except one that wants to leave the ED zone, but that's an issue unrelated to development. That's something we'll have to address.
That's the zone. See the red line there?
Yeah, on that map there is the red. The red is the ED.
It pretty much goes around the 447 and the 2209.
Right.
Golden Triangle.
Yeah, the Golden Triangle.
Yes, sir. Okay. Anything else? Vince, do you have anything?
No, I don't have any. How would you like more?
Wow.
Sure.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Have we proceeded any farther with what is it, SDI? Are they now doing anything?
No, haven't.
We haven't heard anything from them.
You haven't heard anything. They've been talking much.
Okay.
I thought they made a contract.
That's
Well,
what we said last week.
Hmm?
That's what we said last week.
The last I heard was just, I think it was June or so, maybe before, about wanting to build a bridge across, the dam so they could build a road. I haven't heard anything more since then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're waiting to hear more.
Yeah.
In any case, we have one more public comment, which is from David Bauer, who says, as with any modifications, please elaborate the changes. Zoning does not include we forgot about it. We appreciate it. I think that was the abridged version of Robert's story, but they're properties that are commercial in form or in practice, but are not zoned as such, and that they're not dwellings, are they?
There are 2 dwellings there. I wrote to the 6 property owners, this is going back to last January. I heard from 4, and they were very much in favor of the change to the ED zone. The other 2 I never heard from. I think there might be 2 rental houses there, I don't know. But the rest of the properties are either vacant, or there's one that has been I think it's a welding shop or roofing place for a long time, even though it has been operating in I think the R1 zone, rather than in a commercial zone. So this would in a way legitimize their operation that's been there. And for the other properties, the owners definitely want to be in the ED zone. And there's really no reason they shouldn't, since one of the properties in the row on this road is already there.
Robert, I hate to interrupt you, it looks like you need to speak up. Lee's having issues here.
Yeah, Lee, I could assume it's Lee Bauer. I think I know that because you said, I know we paid pretty good money for it. Just for the record, he said, hey guys, whatever you can do to improve sound quality would be beneficial. Impossible to hear, understand audience input. I'm using headphones or would be lost. I know we paid pretty good money for it. With the American Rescue Plan Act funding that we got, one of the things that's permissible to spend it on is, outfitting for, better sound quality, particularly for, Zoom or hybrid meetings. It's really just to outfit the whole municipality for COVID protocol. So that's something I'm looking into. There's a really great, webcam system and speaker system by Logitech that I used at, 2 meetings, in the last 2 months outside of this place. So I'd like to look into getting those so we can, have better omnidirectional sound and whatnot.
Here. Can you hear me now? Is this better? No.
There's probably a bit of lag that they're experiencing.
Yeah.
But perhaps we just make it a point to all try and speak louder
All right.
in the direction of the microphones for now.
Yes, we did pay good money for these. They should be working better than they are.
Well, Ed Metz is running for coroner, so we can talk to him later about these systems. Okay, in any case, are there any other public comments or needs that must be addressed in this meeting? Hearing none, I very much thank all the paid professionals who stayed for our meetings this afternoon, this evening. I appreciate that the media came and that we had a lot of citizen input. That's incredibly important. That said, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
I second.
Okay, any questions on the motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:54.